Hey guys, it's Sam, and today I want to talk about Twitter discourse in the book community specifically, and how I feel that there's a different method for the conversations that we're having because there doesn't seem to be any changes coming from those conversations and discussions. So before I get into this, because I know this is a topic that is like a minefield, this is about no one discussion. I have wanted to make a video like this for probably 3 years and have always put it off because there's always a new discussion coming up, and I never wanted this video to be associated with a particular discussion. As of the filming of this video, nothing is really happening right now. We just came off a big discussion, nothing's happening currently, but by the time I post this video, because I'm filming this for VLOGMAS, and I'm pre-filming it, something could have like literally happened the day before and everyone will assume that I'm talking about that discussion, and I'm not. So please just know that this is a broad overview of my feelings on the vast majority of Twitter discussions and discourse that we have about books and book topics and publishing and character arcs and shipping and all of the stuff that we talk about book-wise. Now, like I said, this is most of the discussions. Obviously, some of my points here are not going to be applicable to every single discussion. Obviously, if someone is trying to oppress a certain group, or they are doxing somebody, or people are going after somebody and bullying them, like that's not the same. So please, I beg you, with this discussion, again, don't think that this is about any one discussion. Don't think that I am taking sides on any discussions of any of the things that have happened previously, or that even I'm saying that these discussions are wrong, because I don't think that they are. I just feel that Twitter is so not the place to actually be having them. So I started making YouTube videos in 2014, and that was before we really started having a ton of discussion. Like, discussion was obviously happening, but we hadn't started having a lot of it. And that obviously had to change because there was like just surface level discussions even happening, and then finally there was a switch where people were starting to have more discussions. I miss sort of that beginning time where a lot of people were having a lot of the discussions that we have about books and things on the video platform. And I miss video discussions and video responses. If you're a YouTube old, you'll remember that you used to be able to post your own video response to someone else's video and be a part of a discussion, and that was so great because it allowed people to talk in this video format and just made it much more discussion-based than the polarizing discourse discussions that we seem to be having today on Twitter. That was also one of the many contributing reasons to making BookNet Fest, because Mari and I wanted to have a place where people could come together and have these important discussions more than just the one-on-one conversations we were seeing on platforms like Twitter, and be able to talk in person about a lot of these topics. And we found across the board in the last 3 years, we're on our 4th year in 2020, that these conversations are just better had in person. Now, I know that there is an incredible amount of privilege to be able to even go to conventions, have conversations like this in person, or be able to film something like video, like the amount of time and effort and having equipment. Absolutely, like that is not actually a solution, because Twitter, the reason that people are having way more discussion on there is because it's way more accessible. If you have a smartphone or a computer, which a lot of people do, you can be a part of these conversations in a way that's way easier than if you had to make a video. And I do understand and see that. But with Twitter, there is an elimination of nuance due to the space constraints of that platform. It's built into the platform. You just can't have nuance with the size of the tweets, and just with the way that that whole system works, nuance really does go away. And I'm somebody who is constantly seeking nuance and is constantly accepting of the gray area of people and humanity and all of that. I work in mental health, I work in social work, so I see daily that humanity has an incredible amount of gray area, that there's no, in most cases, no truly black and white, right or wrong way of handling a situation, approaching a situation, way of really like thinking about things. Again, there are cases where there is black and white, but for the vast majority of normal people, everybody is sitting somewhere in the gray area. There's a spectrum for nearly everything, and there is no steadfast right or wrong way of approaching a situation. For example, I work in hospice, I work in grief and death and dying. There is no one right way to approach your loved one or yourself dying. But a lot of people are like, oh, how dare that person be angry? How dare that person cry and fall on the bed? There is a spectrum of human experience and what everyone brings to the table, and that is what is just lost in a lot of the Twitter conversations I've seen over the many years that I have now been on Twitter. Now, this is not about tone policing. I don't think the actual tone of conversations should change. People have a right to be whatever kind of feeling they are about whatever thing they're arguing about. I'm not saying that people have to change their tone, be not angry, be polite, or anything like that. I think we can have the same kind of feelings that people do have on Twitter in a different platform or in a different way of talking about it that's not Twitter. But the problem with Twitter is that you can't even tell someone's tone. That's, again, one of the constraints of the platform. You can't see how someone's talking about it. So you will constantly see in these like, oh, you know, why are you mad? And the person's like, I'm not mad. I actually explained myself like very professionally and calmly, but you read my tweet as mad. And then there's that just like, you can't have an actual conversation. You can't have an actual human conversation because you can't tell someone's tone in their tweet. Twitter also, as a platform and as a space, promotes polarizations and extremes for likes and karma and even like morality signaling. So people will use Twitter on any side of the spectrum to like signal to other people like, here, I'm over in this camp, you know, very much like a black or white, like you're on one side or the other. So many of these conversations that I've seen over the years, people are like, you're one side or the other. And I'm sitting there like, there's more than just like two sides. Like there's a spectrum, and someone could be like, I agree with this part of the conversation on this side, but I also agree with this part of the conversation on this side. But then where do I sit? Am I a bad person? And there's all of this conflating ships, your opinion on a character, your opinion on basically anything with if you are a good or bad person, and like literally that's so fucked up. Again, there are obviously exceptions to this. Please don't be like, oh wow, Sam's saying that there's like a spectrum where Nazis are okay. Absolutely fucking not. Again, for the majority of the conversations that we're having on Twitter about book stuff, that is not to the level of what we're talking about. We are talking about things that truly do have a spectrum. Also, the polarization for likes and karma, and this is just a problem with social media in general. Everyone has talked about it. There's still no solution to it, but people use tweets and Instagram and whatever, but again, I'm talking about Twitter and these kind of discussions to get likes and retweets, and it has been shown our brain processes as approval and gives us little chemical like yay of like, look, I have self-worth and people like me and whatever. And so that also adds to this whole like Twitter discourse trash fire in a lot of ways. It's also way easier to take things out of context on Twitter, and I've seen this growing throughout the years, but so many conversations I've seen people take screenshots, things out of context, and will then comment on it on their own platform, which there's reasons for this in a lot of cases. Again, this conversation is nuanced, and some of these things aren't necessarily true across the board. Obviously, some people are taking screenshots because they are maybe being bullied by somebody, or they don't want to engage with that person because engaging with that person would cause them harm, whatever the case may be. But again, I'm talking in general, like not these extreme scenarios. Taking of screenshots of things out of context, and obviously not engaging with the person who said the thing, and then starting their own thread separately, talking about this person and what they said, and maybe vilifying them or whatever, and that person cannot at all respond to it. So at that point, you're not even trying to have a discussion. And I think that is what is so infuriating about a lot of this like Twitter conversation. I'm like, have a discussion. I feel like a lot of ways with Twitter, people forget that everyone's a person, and they just see like a, you know, a screen name, a Twitter handle, and it's easier on video to be like, okay, that person is still a person, you know, or in person. I mean, so many conversations that we have online, if we had them in person, I know that they would go so much better because you're able to talk it out like in real time. And again, I know that that can't happen with everything, and that's sad and a shame. But I'm just sitting there watching so many of these conversations happen, and I'm like, you guys are missing each other, and you probably agree on more than you think that you do, because again, all of us fall on a spectrum of opinion, but instead you think you're on two opposite sides of that spectrum. Screenshotting of Twitter conversations and then taking things out of context is way harder to do in other platforms and other scenarios, such as like video or things like that. Like obviously you can maybe get a clip or something, but it just takes so much more effort than screenshotting on your phone and retweeting it on your platform and not engaging with the other person at all. And like I said, sometimes people don't want to engage because it would be dangerous, but in cases where it wouldn't be dangerous, you're then no longer having that discussion. and it's not a discussion anymore. It's again just polarizing for mostly likes and morality signaling. And also the Twitter platform encourages more emotional reaction to get stuff out there quickly because it's easy to do, and because the quicker you get engaged with it, the quicker that you might get like the likes and the karma and things like that. And I think everyone's guilty of this. But before, when we were making more like video responses to things, you had to kind of like sit back and form your own opinion a little bit. There was more time. Like you had to create a video, you had to maybe make notes, whatever. And again, I know that's not accessible for everyone. It's not a solution, but there's still this, by the nature of the platform, people responding emotionally, people responding with just initial thoughts, and then that gets misconstrued. And I found that in some of these Twitter conversations, because again, I sort of like read both sides, again, when it's not something where that's like blatantly harmful to another person, that there are pieces where it's like, okay, yeah, I do agree with like that piece of what that person's saying and that piece of what that person's saying. I don't necessarily disagree with either of them, but I don't fully agree with either of them. But instead, on Twitter, we're like, okay, pick a side, pick a team, and then the opposite team are like bad people. Like, it's just, I hate it. I hate it. And again, it's not about the tone, because you can be angry and emotional on video, obviously. Like, I'm obviously like frustrated. You can tell that I'm frustrated with this. But it's just like, the Twitter platform just encourages you to pop off with like your first thought about anything, which is just like never really a smart idea. And I hate it, but I don't know what the solution is. I'm putting this out there just because, again, this has been building up and bubbling for like 3 years of seeing this stuff happen like every month or like multiple times a month. But like, I don't know what the solution is. Obviously not everyone can go to like conventions and have conversations in public. Obviously people all can't make video. Like, but there has to be, or I wish there was, some other way to do this, because I feel like we get really separated as a book community when this happens. And not that like we all have to be nice and be friends, because trust me, we're not all gonna be nice and be friends. But like, some of these topics aren't that serious. Some are, but some aren't that serious. And now we're saying that anyone that disagrees with us is a bad person, and just, we are smart people. Book people are generally people who want to expand their horizons and get different opinions and learn from others and learn from different people's experiences and all that stuff. And I feel like we lose sight of that with a lot of this Twitter discourse, and it makes me sad. But do I have a solution? No, obviously not. We're not the only community that does this either. Obviously, like, everyone is communicating and doing Twitter discourse. Political stuff happens there. Like, this is true of just a flaw of the platform. But I kind of wish for the new decade that we could think of something else, and we could still have these conversations, and we could still disagree, and we could still, you know, have all of that. But I just don't feel like Twitter is the place to do it. And I know it doesn't matter what I think, and that people are still gonna have conversations on Twitter, and that's the main place to be. But I know I've also seen so many people be like, I have to take a Twitter break, I can't be on Twitter, it causes me so much anxiety. Obviously, our general world is like a cesspool most of the time, so the last thing we wanna do is come on and see just like people fighting on Twitter too. Like, it's just a lot. And I don't know what the solution is, but I want the new decade to have a solution. Maybe we'll start having something like very sci-fi where we can have like discourse in real time, just like on our contacts or glasses or something. I don't know, an Omni tool, whatever. Maybe science fiction will help us. Technology hasn't helped us so far. Social media is technology. We're fucked. So yeah, that was sort of rambly, but again, this is not about one particular discussion. I'm not taking sides on any discussion, which is why I didn't bring up any of the discussions as actual examples, because I didn't want anyone to cling on to that. I don't have a solution. I know there's a lot of privilege tied to being able to have conversations off Twitter. I just would like something to change, and I don't know what that is. But that's also why I'm talking to you guys, because I have a very smart, wonderful community here. And maybe you guys have ideas, and we can help enact change, because this is exhausting. So comment below, let me know your thoughts, ideas, anything like that. This is a little bit of a sadder Christmas topic, but I had to do it before the end of the year. I had to get off my chest in 2019 and leave it in 2019, hopefully. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.